back to Global TV Talk Show, the business unit of globalbusinessnews.net. Our very special guest today Ken Somers from Somers HR Solutions will be with us very shortly. He's going to be talking about a key issue today, and I'm really happy to have him and some others will join us in the conversation. Ken's topic today is, and I'm going to read this to get it right, the need to move away from annual performance reviews to continuous, ongoing performance feedback. Ken Somers is the managing partner of Somers, that's S-O-M-E-R-S, HR Solutions. Years of multinational experience. Here today on Global TV Talk Show. I'm really honored. We'll be right back with Ken and our special guests. Thank you. Hi, it's Ed in San Diego, as you can see from the background, sunny day when I took that picture. And with us from LA is Dr. Ken Lloyd, and in Connecticut, Ken Somers, Somers HR Solutions, and the keynoter today, and talking about going away from single time performance reviews. Is that history?
I hope so. Not yet, but
yeah. Well, it
maybe
doesn't
we
make
can,
sense, really, when you think about it. Cram everything into a year and then say, okay, how am I doing, boss? And I would not like that myself.
no, and most people don't. Has been my experience. Yeah.
Right.
No, I would argue, Ed, that it's a traditional performance reviews, that once a year cycle is a relic, and we ought to get rid of it. And we need to move to more of a continuous feedback process where the world recognizes that, well, I would assert we're back in a VUCA environment, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity.
I
And
saw that
particularly,
post earlier. Yeah.
yeah. And being in a VUCA environment and, not not to go down the wrong rat hole, but I think it's going to continue for the foreseeable future. And in that context, it's I don't think it's logical for a business to say in January, here are our goals for the year, and they're going to be set in stone and nothing will change. And as a consequence, the success or lack of success of individual employees, departments, companies, et cetera, will be anchored to those goals that were established in January. It ain't going to happen because the world changes and we need performance management processes that reflect reality and a changing set of expectations from employees as well.
So I'm not sticking up for Gen X or whatever, or Gen Alpha or anything like that, but it's about time. I mean, ongoing surveillance is present, and your phone is your personal. I'm holding up my phone there, but the systems record everything,
True.
and so the bosses know how my work is being done day in, day out. Why wait for a time to have a discussion?
Well, the bosses have the capability to know what's
Mm.
going on a continuing basis. Whether the managers are paying enough attention is another matter. But certainly the technology exists, and the climate in workplaces, I think, well, the climate in workplaces was changing anyways, and I would argue, and I don't think Ken would disagree, that COVID was an accelerator in terms of driving change in the workplace.
No, for sure. Boy.
And we're still with that acceleration. We're still figuring out what it means. But I believe that we have the opportunity now to move away from a traditional approach that was backward looking, difficult for employees, difficult for managers, stress inducing, and just, an uncomfortable process altogether, and move to um, a more contemporary approach that delivers feedback and coaching to employees on a regular basis, allows the business to adjust to changing needs, and for employees to adapt to those changing needs. It's not rocket science.
Yeah. So is this thinking international or is it just US?
Oh no, I mean, my experience is it's global. Ken, I don't know what you've observed,
Oh, oh,
but
absolutely. It's a major change because the annual appraisals started to get onto the endangered list a while back, and they are going extinct. And
yeah,
I absolutely agree. It's not just in the US. You certainly see it globally. The idea of this feedback once a year makes no sense psychologically as well as motivationally. If I'm doing something, it's important for me to have the feedback as close to that behavior as possible for me to learn and to grow and develop. And the feedback is not you did this wrong, you did that wrong. It's more developmental. It's more future focused, forward focused. Sometimes we even use the expression feed forward, that is really going to help direct and work collaboratively with the employee to build in areas where strengths and additional skills and performance are needed.
absolutely. Could not possibly agree more. And I said a moment ago, it's not rocket scientists. There's only a handful of core principles that you need to apply as you migrate to a more continuous feedback process. Regular check-ins. Now, some people get a little antsy when I say you need to have regular check-ins. But I would marry this concept of continuous feedback to another one, which I'm sure that Ken's familiar with, and that's situational leadership. And situational leadership will tell you that you adapt your style to the maturity and motivations of each individual employee on your team. I don't think it's a big leap to say, if I've got an employee who's mature, motivated, is good at their job, maybe I only meet with that person once every month or 6 weeks. By contrast, if I have a newer employee or one who is struggling in his or her role, maybe I want to meet with that person every week or every 2 weeks. The point is to have regular, frequent check-ins. How are things going? What can I help you with? How can I make you more successful? That should be the theme of those check-ins. So, and you combine with that, if you observe success, give those pats on the back. Don't even wait for the regular check-in. Catch people being successful. Uh, and if someone's struggling, catch them struggling and help them in the moment instead of waiting. Um, as Ken mentioned, the other concept is that the feedback should be developmental. It's not what did you do wrong, it's how can I help you be more successful. Goal setting, as we've already talked about, needs to be adaptable and leverage technology. There's all kinds of wonderful tools out there now that makes this easier, simpler, and more effective for both the manager and the employee. So those are the
Okay.
principles. It's,
Yeah.
again, not rocket science.
Okay.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right in the sense that certainly it's not rocket science. This is intuitively logical. It makes good sense. Here we have a program and a process that's generating, as Ken mentioned, stress, tension, anxiety, angst for employees, for managers, for the employees themselves. And there's something so easily adapted and put in that makes it much more positive and productive and performance enhancing and collaborative. And this is not a tough kind of approach to take. Recognizing also from the goal setting standpoint, it's not just a company in January saying, all right, here are the goals, goodbye. It's let's talk about them. Goals can be revised, situations change. There is a lot of volatility among other changes. So let's make sure we have some flexibility there and employee participation in developing at least some of the goals, certainly developmental goals. We have performance goals, we have development goals, development in terms of where are you going in your career path, what goals are you going to set to help you take you where you want to go. as well as performance-wise. What measurable standards, goals, and results can we agree upon, and the strategies to get there and the priorities of them. It's a whole different thing, a lot more employee involvement and support at the same time.
So the manager role, and I'm not a manager, I'm basically a salesman, but it sounds like it's evolving into coaching. And rather than
Absolutely.
stay away from that good employee, you want to live the life that he or she is living right now and help them go faster, better, clearer, smarter.
Absolutely. It's when I grew up in business, managers were taught to control processes and people. Um, and the world has changed. Um, we need leaders now. We don't need managers. AI can probably do a lot of process management. We need leaders to lead their people, to inspire them to greater success. Um, and one of the ways you do that is using a lot more behavioral data in the workplace. Um, what's my style? What's your style? How do we work together? What are my red flags? What are your red flags? How do we avoid the problems we know we'll create if we do or behave certain ways? Um, and you know, I hate to stereotype, but baby boomers, people like me, and I'm guessing like you guys, um, grew up in a world where you expected your boss to tell you what to do. Um, that's a lot less true today. We want employees who understand their jobs, understand their responsibilities, understand how to navigate the organization, and go and do good things with support from managers, not direction from managers.
Ken, you have a lot of experience in Poland, amongst other places. Uh, do people think the same way there?
Oh, I think that, as Ken mentioned, I think that this is a global change. Um, Different places are progressing at different paces. Um, I have a very dear friend in Poland who I'm actually speaking with tomorrow. Um, she's the head of HR for a software company, and they're trying to figure out how to migrate to this approach because and the interesting thing is that the company is UK based, but all the developers are in Poland. But it's um, it's a bit of a challenge because the traditionalists in the organization and in many organizations, I'm not going to pick on these folks, um, grew up a certain way, and change is hard for people. So we have to be able to demonstrate the value of making this shift and the benefits it will deliver not only to employees, but to the business as a whole. So,
Mm.
so yeah, I think it's going to progress globally. Um,
So the approach, like for instance, Stephen Howard and his Humany approach and that thing, it seems to be getting very popular.
Yeah, Stephen's certainly getting a lot of traction with the Humany. Yes, he and I actually just did a webinar for a local chamber of commerce about 10 days ago, where we introduced Humany. We talked about performance management in the context of Humany leadership, and I think it was pretty well received.
Interesting. Yeah.
So,
So, Ken, you were on the program yesterday with me and Jay Sternberg. Ken, have you ever met Jay Sternberg, formerly from Ernst & Young? He just retired as a senior partner, and he's written a
no.
new book. Uh, so we were on his premiere yesterday. I thought it
Oh,
was
nice.
a great show. But
Very nice.
that's reaching out to people, influencing, sharing, being tuned in to through he calls it authenticity.
Hmm.
I don't have my notes in front of me, but so authenticity and plain spoken and something else? Ken, do you remember exactly?
A lot of the focus was on two-way communication
Mm,
and truly engaging with your employees and trying to keep it, if you will, uncomplicated, not going off into all sorts of tangents, but really to be clear, direct, actively listening to your troops and working from there. It's funny, I think back to one of the first management classes that I took, and the premise of the class was, what do managers do? Plan, organize, staff, control, and direct. Those words were hit over and over and over. So I still have to have them wasting my brain cells, because where are the people in this thing? Where is the upward communication? Where's the focus on growth and development and collaboration? Nope. It's just the manager in control, as opposed to just what you said, Ed, coaching. Coaching is a key function. And when we're in managerial positions, to think of ourselves as coaches and not just as managers. Because managers, even as Steve Howard says, you're really managing resources. Let's talk about working with and collaborating with and coaching people. It's far more humanistic approach, and it's frankly far more effective and successful in building employees and building organizations, particularly today with millennials and the younger other generations that are now in the workforce.
right. So my background for many years was uh, in sales and marketing, connected with the employee relocation stuff, and which was a very big business for a long time and still is active, but now it's being buffeted by geopolitics and tariffs and all kinds of crazy things. Uh, And the role of coaching while a manager is on assignment in a foreign country, particularly if there's a family tagging along, coaching is just now being talked about as a necessity, not a perk. Because how are these people going to live and react in a strange place where nobody knows who they are nor cares really? And so that reverts to mental health issues for the expat, and particularly if there's a spouse and kids in a teenage year, younger it won't matter, but coaching that employee towards being productive on the assignment will go right to the bottom line of the company and will very likely retain that talent and grow that talent
Oh, yeah.
if they're mentored. Now, Ken Somers, you had lots of experience with that.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think back to my first expatriate assignment, which was in Singapore. Went from Poughkeepsie, New York, the Poughkeepsie, New York area to Singapore. Talk about a culture shock. Um, and you know,
Where am I?
yeah, well, yeah, where am I indeed? I dragged a spouse and two young kids along with me, and oh, by the way, a dog. And oh, by the way, I'll just say parenthetically, perhaps the most traumatic part of that was that the poor dog had to be in quarantine for 2 weeks. And we'd schlep out to a quarantine area and visit the dog on weekends, but that's a whole nother story. But the first year of my assignment, I struggled mightily, both professionally and personally, because you get off a plane, you go to the hotel, and then ultimately to your apartment, and show up for work, and it's like, well, how does everything work? What do I do? Who do I talk to? Nothing. And I was working for a rather large, well-known company at the time, but that's the way things were at that point.
Well, unfortunately, they still are. Maybe not as severe, but because there's now apps that people can use and find others close to them, proximate to them.
Right. And
Uh,
we had the benefit of learning. I call Singapore Singapore is expats for begin is an expat location for beginners because it's relatively easy to acclimate to. Um, but had we not had that experience, our subsequent expatriate assignments would have been far more difficult because English was less easy to find. So you're absolutely right. Coaching or the kind of support that Stephen talks about in his Human ebook are really, I think, essential to helping expatriates hit the ground running quickly. And companies spend so much money on these assignments that it's in their best interest to support that expat and their
Right,
family
right.
in getting settled. And, we do the cosmetics, we don't do the real important stuff.
And now the role is exactly what I affectionately call this the global meeting room. In other words, I'm not doing live meetings anymore. Think I want to, but then the idea of getting on a plane and schlepping into London or New York, never mind Dallas or LA, for me, which is 130 miles, it's the last thing in the world I want to do. Where this is
Well,
so easy.
and not to date myself, but I guess I will. I mean, when I first started traveling internationally, it was a big deal. I mean, you did not get on the plane looking like a slob. Um, and you know, it, the world has become far more casual. Um,
And more
but
expensive.
yes,
Yeah.
and well, yes, that's a whole nother story. But no, leveraging the technology as we're doing right now is critical, and there's no reason why we can't take advantage of the technology as leaders learn how to become leaders instead of managers, supporting their employees. Um, I'm particularly fond of a couple of different tools, and I use them in my practice, and they're impactful. They make a difference. So using technology like Zoom, like performance management software, behavioral assessments, cognitive assessments, those are all um, tools in a manager's or a leader's toolkit that can help him or her successfully lead their teams. And
Here we
but you
are
got
again. This is Ken's book,
bonus
and
appraisals
it's
and phrases.
phrases for dummies. So I'm sure you're already rewriting this thing now, but for how are people going to prompt AI for the right phrase?
Oh yeah, well, those applications are already out there. They are already out there. I use one it's called Perform, which is pretty straightforward, and it will do, among other things, it will track those regular meetings between the employee and the manager or leader. I'm still learning how to substitute leader for manager. Um, so there's an AI built in, so it will record those calls and summarize everything. It will give the manager and the employee an action plan, and it'll schedule the next follow-up. Um, it's I don't know how to make it easier for people than to deploy tools like that. Um, and then what it also does is it lets the human resources department keep track of what's going on so that if a manager is not, or if a leader is not fulfilling his or her obligations to engage with the staff on a continuing basis, the HR department, or hopefully the business partner, has the opportunity to jump in and say, hey, Bob, what's going on? Why haven't you been engaging with your team? Um, not to put HR in the police role. That's not what I want to do, but that's where HR can help make a difference.
Ken?
Yeah, not to go against what you were saying, but there's no need to rewrite my book. My book came out in December, so it's not even a year old yet. It's a newbie. So I certainly talk about the role of AI and some of the sites, uh, like the one that Ken had mentioned, and the technologies that can support the process. And refer readers to them, and certainly from the tracking standpoint, the assistance. At the same time, I throw in a caveat: do not let AI write performance reviews. Do not let AI give you the data that spells it out exactly what you're going to provide to your employee. You're still evaluating the individual who reports to you, not AI. AI is a great tool. It's a great coach. It's a great help. You can get a great first draft, but it has to come from you, in part because it's going to be more accurate, And also, employees know typically when something is written about them through AI, and this has been tested and proven, and it doesn't wear well. Here we're talking about being more humanistic and being more communicative and more authentic. And yet, here's something I pulled off ChatGPT for you on your feedback. People don't want that, and people can see it. So you have to be careful in that sense. The eval, the feedback, the coaching, the guidance should come from us genuinely. And if we need help putting it together, great. You got a great tool out there. In addition to all the tracking functions and the reminders and all the other benefits, administrative that go with it, feedback and feed forward still should come ultimately from you. You can get help, nothing wrong with that. That's smart, but it still has to come from you. You know your team better.
100% agree. 100%. Tools are there to assist you, not replace you.
Exactly.
And I would argue, and I know we're not really talking about AI today, but I have to say, I think that people who are worried about losing their jobs because of artificial intelligence need to say, how do I adopt it so that I can enhance my contributions, not be afraid of it? So probably do a whole segment on AI, Ed.
Um, Part of that is happening tomorrow morning at 7:30 California time. Ken, are you going to join that?
I'm planning on it.
Uh,
Yes.
Very, very briefly, the National SHRM organization, and I go back 25 years. I've been going to their meetings. They give me a press pass each time to cover the event and do interviews that will benefit post-event after people have gone home and forgot about it already. So I walked around the San Diego Convention Center this past late June, introducing myself to various people, just ad hoc, walking down the exhibit areas. And one of the successful encounters that I had was with ADP, Automatic Data Processing, a large company. And I happened to hit on the right people at the right moment that day. And that meeting is turning into a video broadcast recording session tomorrow morning.
Nice.
And I was on with the head of media for the corporation this morning, planning it. And he says, Naomi, the manager, is very excited to talk about AI and how it's impacting ADP right now. And she's got a limited time frame of 30 minutes. But the manager said, if all goes well, I'm sure there'll be additional opportunities to have us do more interviews together going forward with additional people. So I wanted to tell you that because it's right on exactly this topic. And
Yeah.
there's a major company.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And by the way, I didn't realize, Ken, that you had written that book. I'll have to check it out. I thought Ed was just flashing something he had on his desk.
No, I get paid for PR. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a new edition. I wrote the first one for the dummies people about 15 years ago,
Ah,
and they said, "Will you do a new edition?" I said, "Yeah, we could use one. It seems like a good idea." 15 years
yeah,
of HR takes us right back to the period you were talking about when basically the dinosaurs are walking around doing the eval. So it's a whole different era now.
it is.
Interesting.
It is.
Ken, going back to your relationships in current relationships in, say, Poland, and I know you have them currently in other countries. Um, Without naming names or anything, how do they view what's going on in America? Not politically, although it's certainly part of the picture, but business.
Well, um, I don't know how to separate politics and business right now
Mm,
because they're just totally intertwined. Um, there's a great deal of anxiety. Um, there's a great deal of anxiety about the world in general, but I my friends, whether they're in Poland or in Japan or Hong Kong or other places, India, still have a lot of connections in India. Um, I think it is fair to describe it as there's anxiety about America's reliability as a partner, just broadly written. Um, we could go down any number of topic areas on that, but I think that that's a fair high level picture that there's just anxiety about can we depend on America to be America? And that's troubling.
Yeah,
Troubling to me, and I
it's
imagine it's troubling to you.
threatening.
Yep, I didn't want to get too dramatic, but yes,
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm feeling it. Yeah,
I think
right
we
on
all
the
do in different ways.
front lines. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Um, so thank you very much for your time, Ken, and your energy and information. I'm going to give you the focus now for the next few minutes to summarize about where you're going with Somers HR Solutions as you look into
sure,
26.
sure. So, well, let me offer just a few wrap up thoughts about this notion of continuous performance feedback. Um, just a handful of points. We want to shift to continuous conversations. Again, the frequent two-way check-ins with the managers and the managers acting as coaches. And we have a responsibility as practitioners to help managers transition into being leaders. Um, and by being leaders, they can learn how to be coaches. Um, and that feedback should be focused on specific action-oriented results. We want to foster development and recognition, prioritizing personalized development plans, learning opportunities, and stretch assignments. Um, we want to recognize and reward high performance promptly and not just with money. Sometimes I think about myself. More often than not, just a pat in the back said, "Hey, Ken, you did a really nice job on that project," is worth a lot more than it really is worth a lot more to me than some extra money because the money goes away, but recognition stays for a long time. We talked about technology a lot. I won't beat that horse again, other than to say there's some wonderful tools out there. Use the tools, but don't let the tools do your job for you. To echo Ken's remark, couldn't agree more. Um, we need leaders to learn how to navigate difficult conversations because not everybody is a great performer. And there are going to be times where leaders need to coach for development and greater performance. And generally speaking, leaders struggle with difficult conversations. So that's one of my opportunities going forward, frankly, is helping people learn how to manage difficult situations. And some of the things that we used to teach managers, and I think our continuous feedback is avoid some of the traditional pitfalls, and I'm sure Ken's talked about this in his book, some of the pitfalls and biases of the traditional review process. Halo effect, recency effect, things like that. Those are still risks that exist in the process. I would argue that if you do move to a continuous feedback process, the risks are reduced, but they're still there. And gosh, I just lost that thought. But yeah, I think that's a fair summary. But as I look to 26 beyond, where I find my practice evolving most significantly is a lot of interest in performance management. And if I may shamelessly share this, I just wrote my first little book uh, on transforming performance management. It's out on Amazon. Um,
If you'd like to use my screen share to display the cover clearly, full
I
screen,
don't have
please.
I don't have an image I don't have an image of it. So, but perhaps another time. It's not. It was intentionally put together as a very quick, easy read. Um, anyways, but a lot of work on performance management, succession planning is becoming a more important part of my practice, as well as coaching. And I'm just about to finish up a coaching certification because the market demands letters after your name. 40 years of battle scars aren't enough anymore if you want to be a coach. You have to have a few letters after your name. So that's how I'm looking at 26.
Ken, how are you looking at 26?
I'm always looking optimistically and positively, because if not, it'll just take us down and expectations can end up being reality. So from that standpoint, to look at it as a year, perhaps, hopefully, maybe some of the concerns that we have internationally and nationally will be allayed. I always believe that light follows darkness. I think there's a lot of darkness right now, and perhaps we will see things going better in the world, and certainly in the business world and in organizations as well. And I think a lot of it is helped by people like Ken Somers, who are out there working with managers, working with teams to show them a more humanistic and productive way to operate in organizations today. I think it's an important set of information for people to have and for tools to them apply. For them to apply. You mentioned situational leadership. You're absolutely right. People say, well, what's the one best way to lead? The answer is there isn't one. Tell me about the situation. What are the resources? What's the timing? Who are the players that are involved? If I've used this analogy before, if I'm the captain of the Titanic and we got an iceberg that's just hit the ship, I don't think we're going to sit, let's have our one-on-one meetings. Let's focus group this. You'll have to use a more direct and firm leadership style. On the other hand, there are plenty of situations where it can be highly participative, or even turn the decisions over to the employees themselves to fully understand the situation. And I see more of that happening as well. So I approach 2026 positively, continuing to work with managers and teams in coaching areas, similar to what Ken is saying. I've got some letters after my name, so I don't have to do that. And there we go. But Ken, I agree. Somehow your knowledge and experience and expertise should overpower that. But if the world is saying, hey, we want to see some, if you will, credentials, okay, great. And that, to me, your credentials are your wonderful experience and your expertise, but that doesn't give you letters. So there you go.
No, but thank you for that. I agree, but we're all creatures of the market, so you respond to the market.
Yeah.
Please come back on Global TV. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Thank
Be
you,
well,
Ken.
guys. Take care.
Bye-bye. Thanks.